My people, welcome to Rants and Randomness. I'm your host, Luvvie and Ajayi Jones, New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and professional troublemaker. And I'm here to share dope conversations that'll give you something to think about, help you smile, and feel empowered to do the thing that feels hard. So let's get into it. Today, I'm talking to the amazing Abby Wambach. Abby is a two-time Olympic gold medalist and FIFA World Cup champion. She was the United States leading scorer in the 2007 and 2011 Women's World Cup tournaments and the 2004 and 2012 Olympics. An activist for equality and inclusion, Abby is the author of the New York Times bestsellers Forward, a memoir, and Wambach, How to Come Together, Unleash Our Power, and Change the Game. During our conversation, we cover a lot of things. We cover how she grew up in a household of 10 people, how she became a professional athlete basically at the age of 5, and what she's learned post-retirement that she walks with now. Before we jump into this interview, I want to make sure the Rants fam knows that my new book, Professional Troublemaker, The Fear Fighter Manual, comes out March 2nd, 2021, and it's available for pre-order right now. I wrote this book because I realized everything is great in my life. I wrote this book because I realized everything great in my life has come as a result of me choosing to be a professional troublemaker. From feeling afraid and choosing to do the scary thing anyway, that is what has spurred me forward. We don't need to make ourselves fearless. We need to learn to fight the fear and imposter syndrome we feel and use it as fuel to become better versions of ourselves. The things that I'm talking about in this book will take you from being a fear hider to being a fear fighter. And heaven knows, we got a lot of things that bring up fear right now. So to pre-order, go to professionaltroublemakerbook.com to learn more. Grab the links to pre-order. It's everywhere books are sold. Thank you in advance. Abby, welcome to Rants and Randomness. This is a long time coming.
Why has this happened? Why is this happening so long? I mean, I'm a little bit pissed at you. Let's go.
I was like, I gotta find the right time. Meanwhile, Glenn has been on, and I love the fact that you and I have on matching hats.
Totally, red all the way.
Actually, we are dressed very much alike right now. We're both in black shirts and hats with red in it. Because I'm like, Abby knows. Abby's my shoe inspiration also.
I do like myself some shoes.
Your sneaker game is sick.
Yes. Do you want to know? I've just read this book. Listen to it. We were just talking about that. I just listened to this book and I'm learning the difference between assets and liabilities.
Yes.
And evidently all the things that I enjoy in life are all liabilities. They will literally only take money out of my bank account, right? So I love watches. I love shoes. I love cars. So I'm trying to not do that as much. And, this whole last 6, 7, 8 months, however long it's been since the pandemic, I haven't purchased a single shoe because I have no reason to wear them. Like what am I supposed to do? I need to actually have a reason. I got this event. I totally got to bling out. Come on. No events, no shoes.
I wish I could say that. I just bought 3 pairs.
Ooh.
Because one day we will have to leave the house.
Totally. What'd you go for?
That day? I ended up going for some Nigerian Olympic Nike Prestos.
Sick.
They're sick. They're sick.
You're getting prepped for Tokyo next summer.
They're sick.
The
prints on them, Prestos are my favorite sneakers anyway, because they feel like you're wearing socks.
Yep.
So then the Nigerian version, perfect. And the pattern on it is nuts. So I just bought that 2 weeks ago.
That's so fun.
So yeah, I'm still buying shoes. Just not as much as I used to though.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird. It's like, what are we buying anything for? It's actually really been good for my spirit because, all that stuff is just void filling. It's like, I feel that little pang of something of I don't want to be here right now. I'm going to go search online and try to find all the things to fill the void that I'm trying to escape from or something.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. We're having to contend with ourselves. So typically the first thing I like to ask my guests, and the first thing I am going to ask you is, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Okay, so I have to preface this by saying that school was never my thing. Like I wasn't, and now what I've learned about education is that there's a lot of different forms of learning.
Yes.
And I would have been a kid that would probably thrive in this day and age of the schooling. You know, my kids, they've been and have had teachers that have, you know, seats and chairs that have like little bicycle things, you know, on their feet. I forget the exact term, but like it's like mobility. Like you can be in movement throughout the day so that you don't feel like just stuck in a chair listening to a teacher that you don't even really care about, talking about something that you don't really care about. I mean, I was just a really good athlete. And I think from the time that I was a young kid, because I was so, for lack of a better words, advanced in sports, I think that it allowed me, or I felt at the time, it allowed me to be lax in other areas, self-discipline, school, like these things. So, you know, when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Now, there really wasn't professional women's soccer. There wasn't really money to be made, but I just, you know, I watched the Olympics and I saw the figure skaters, even though that was never going to be my sport. I just thought it was so cool what they did. And I knew that I was gifted a certain set of talents about sport. You know, I was beating my brothers and sisters at sports. You know, I'm the youngest of 7. So for the youngest kid to be beating, you know, a sibling 5 to 10 years older than me, that was a bit of a, like, my family was like, wait, what's happening here? Like, I'm actually trying to beat her at horse or whatever. So yeah, I think that from a young age, I also kind of toyed with the idea of being an FBI agent because I like mystery and I like solving problems.
Okay.
And that actually came to fruition a couple years ago. We got our pickup truck stolen out of our front yard and out of our driveway. And we found the kids that stole it because I was like private eye. Like I had video cameras. I was like in it.
Okay. So you wanted to be a professional athlete and then FBI agent. What was the first sport that you actually played and how old were you?
Okay. So, I grew up with a pool and I was privileged enough to have a pool in my backyard. We lived on this really cool, like cul-de-sac. So there wasn't like a lot of street traffic. And all the kids in the neighborhood, they would come to our house. And we had like a team of people to begin with at my family. Like there are 9 people living in my house all the time. So I was very keen on just getting in the pool and swimming. And at the age of, I think, 2 years old, I jumped in to the deep end of the pool off the diving board with no swimmies on. And from that point on, they kind of knew that I was going to be a risk taker. So yeah, that was like the first sport that I was like really into. But the first time I ever played soccer, actually, I was a little rec league team. And, you know, like I was like 5 years old, literally nobody knows what they're doing. Right. And here I am, like the first 3 of those games, I scored 27 goals. And my mom was like, what? My mom was like, this is not normal. Like the rest of the children, I mean, they did good. They were competitors, but they weren't like, you know, I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to be the one, I'm going to score. And after much analysis, I realize now that being in a big family comes with its pluses and minuses, and really understanding what was the true motivation of all of that and kind of my whole sport and the process of becoming an athlete. I just wanted my parents' attention.
Right.
Yeah, because it's so hard when you have 9 people living under the same roof. It's so hard to get any focused attention on just you, even though all of my brothers and sisters would be like, all the attention was on you. You were the baby. And then like, you were this like star athlete. Like from a young age, I was like fighting for that, what I thought was like love and attention from my parents. So it worked out.
I mean, first of all, a 5-year-old scoring 27 goals is actually nuts. Like they're probably like, what? The rest of the kids are probably like, I'm just here to wear the uniform. And here you are like competing
The only reason why I actually know that is because the game, it would be the mercy rule. So the reason why I know that I scored 9 goals is that 9 goals was the limit, and then the game was over. And so the game ended because I scored 9 goals, and then, or they would have to put me in goal before the 9-goal mercy rule. So yeah, you know, what can I say?
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York. It's a city called Rochester, New York, and a little suburb of Rochester called Pittsford. You know, super, it's where Kodak and Xerox kind of started. Mm-hmm. So blue collar area and hard workers, good people, like salt of the earth people. They're not trying to steal anything from you. You know, we grew up in a place, I was privileged to grow up in a place like we didn't lock our doors, and, you know, people would just walk into our house. Like if that were the case in my life, like first of all, Glennon would never be cool with that. Yeah. But second of all, like I think it's so interesting just generationally and where you choose to live. Yeah, I mean, it was an idyllic childhood in many ways. Came with some stressors as I got older. But yeah, overall, a great place to grow up, a great place to raise kids. Many of my brothers and sisters actually still live there.
So how many brothers? You have 6 brothers and sisters. How many brothers, how many sisters?
So there are 2 eldest girls, and then 4 boys, and then me. So my mom, she was born and raised Catholic and raised us Catholic. I'm a recovering Catholic because of it. And she wanted a baby girl so much so that she prayed to Mary Virgin, the Mother of God, that if she had a baby girl for me, that she would name her Mary. So technically, my full name is Mary Abigail, which is hilarious.
So Catholic. It is so Catholic.
I mean, come on, it's hysterical. And you know, come on, like I am not a Mary by any means. And this is no disrespect to Marys. It's just like, it doesn't fit, right? Like I'm for sure through and through an Abby. But interestingly enough, we had 2 cousins that came and lived with us at various times. So I feel as though I have, you know, 8 brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And so there was just like always like mayhem happening. Like when I go home, I have to like pump Glennon with like the week before. I'm like, how many times have you meditated this week? Like,
because introvert is like, there's going to be a lot of peopling.
Yeah. And I'm an extrovert, right? So it works for us in our relationship. But like when you take an introvert into a huge family dynamic that now have children of their own, you know, there's 20 something, almost 30 grandchildren that my parents are dealing with. So when we go home and we're at my mom's house or my dad's house, there's 50 people there. And Glennon's like, what is going on? I mean, she's awesome and she loves it. But there are times where I'm like, hey, do you want to just like go for a walk, or like, do you want to go upstairs and just chat for a few minutes so that she could just decompress and not like literally have a heart attack?
So you and Glennon are similar to me and Carnell. I'm the introvert. He's the extrovert. And you could see my face whenever I'm like, I've done too much peopling. Yeah. I need to get away. Like I just like retreat somewhere. I'm just like, okay, I have to go sit by myself for a minute. So I totally understand how that unfolds in real life.
Yeah.
And it works. So you need extroverts to pull introverts out of our own bubbles. You do. Mm-hmm. And you need introverts to calm extroverts down, to be like, all right, relax, like come sit by yourself for a hot second. So it works.
I think that that's probably the thing that gets Glennon and I into most of our fights, or whatever you want to call it. It's just like the way that we both grew up and operated through this introverted, extroverted lens. You know, I'm like kind of loud and obnoxious, and it's because that's how I needed to be in order to survive. Yeah. And Glennon is very quiet, and noise actually, you know, misophonia, it's like a real thing. I think that my voice sometimes is actually like jarring and it's upsetting. So we have one child who is also like me in this way, and the other 2 are like Glennon. So yesterday I even said, I was like, listen, Emma, you and me are very the same. Like we are loud. We are out there. We get energy from other people, but we have to be conscious of being around some introverts because it's actually, it's upsetting. Like it literally upsets Glenn. And sometimes she's like, I don't understand how you don't understand how your loudness is upsetting, you know? So yeah, of course, like introvertedness and extrovertedness aside.
It's a lot. It's a lot, but I get it too, because I also come from a loud family. We're just loud in general. Like we use outside voice inside because Africans. So I totally get, like Glennon would lose her shit if she was around my family for more than 2 hours because the loudness, they act like you're not sitting right there. Like, so everybody's just loud for no reason. So I'll do that. I love doing that. And then I go retreat and I'm just like, I'm going to sit and face the wall in the dark. That is me. Like, I'm like, okay, I can deal with temporary loudness to a certain point. Then I got to go sit in the corner and just like hate humans for like 5 minutes to myself. And then I'll be back. I'm like, okay. So I totally get it. And you grew up in a household with 10 people. So that had to be complete mayhem. So you end up excelling in sports. School was not your jam.
Nope.
So did you skip class a lot? Were you?
Yeah. I mean, it's not something that I'm like uber proud of, but I think that, you know, I read a lot of biographies. I read a lot. I'm a kind of person that I need to get into something to really want to learn about it.
Yeah.
And I need to be faced with it, like in the moment. And I need to like actually have like concrete reasons. Like I need reason. To learn about algebra for me as a kid, I was like, when am I ever going to use this?
Right.
Yeah. Like to learn about some of the stuff. And so it's actually really interesting now because I am a very interested person and curious about the world. So I go through fits and just learning random things. Like right now I'm like full bore in learning about investing and finance. Like that's just like what I'm like super into. And 20 years ago, like you couldn't pay me enough money to like require me to learn this stuff. Right. So yeah, school, it's not that I even skipped school. I just didn't even try, you know, like at all. And I'm sad because I never graduated from college. I got through 3.5 years and then bolted. I was like, I'm going to be a professional athlete. And the irony of that is that my first contract as a professional athlete was like $30,000 a year. And I thought that I was the richest person on the planet. I was like, I'm going to play sports. I'm a pro. And then I got into the real world. And now in my retirement, it's bizarre because, you know, as I grew up on the national team and became more elite and was scoring a lot of goals and being an impact player and then being a captain, being a leader, I was able to secure more money, but for sure not enough to be able to live for the rest of my life. So in the end, looking back, I wish I'd paid a little bit more attention. I wish I was a little bit more interested and committed to my education. However, I also believe that I was a one focused and one track mind kind of kid, which allowed me to play the sports, play soccer as best as I possibly could at an earlier age, because I kind of set my sights on being a pro from the young age that I was. And because of that, I think that and also this like belief that like, oh, I don't have anything else to fall back on. I have to make this work. I have to be a good pro athlete. And that was like a driving force as well. Like whether you want to believe that that's fear or what, like sometimes fear is a good driver.
It's a good driver. But I think there's something to be said for people who are successful, who were not good students. Because oftentimes we hear the stories of like, yeah, no, I've been this excellent person in all fields all the time. And it's really important to also hear the other part, which was, I was not a fan of school. And even though I wish I did it different, I wasn't one then. But to your point, learning looks different, right? Like every kid is not going to be the studious, I got to actually do my homework. I was that kid. I was definitely the studious, like I must get the A's and all of that stuff. But you had this clarity that you wanted to be a professional athlete from a young age and then basically focused on it and that drove you forward. So tell me, what college did you go to?
I went to the University of Florida. So I I was recruited. I was actually the national high school player of the year, my senior year in high school. And so I was recruited by every college. And one of the best schools, University of North Carolina, I went on my college visit there. I went to 4 other schools, Florida being another one of them. And UNC is where everybody thought I was going to go.
Yeah.
But the UNC coach, he only offered me books as a scholarship. And because I hadn't been in the full national team system yet, I was in the youth national team system. That was like his way. It was like he was like the Nike of the schools, where, you know, if you go be an athlete for Nike, you take a little bit of a pay cut just to be a part of the brand, right?
Yeah.
So that was his philosophy. And I was like, screw you. Like, I'm going to go get a full ride. I deserve a full ride. My parents paid for 6 other brothers and sisters to go to college. Like, they're broke, you know,
Right.
like, let's give them like a retirement, like more money. And so I decided to take the full ride and go to University of Florida. And the irony with that is that we were able to get to the final of the NCAA tournament that next year. And we beat UNC in the final.
Yes.
What?
That is the best payback.
Yes.
Oh my God. That coach must have been like, I made a mistake.
Yeah. There was like a special done on me towards the end of my career. And he was actually interviewed, for it. And he's like, yeah, I think I offered her books. He's like, giant mistake.
Yes. That must have felt so good.
Yeah. You know, it does feel good. And it also feels good to have had the career I had, because I had a guidance counselor in high school that sat me down, and a guidance counselor in college, a professor that said, well, you're never going to be able to make it as a soccer player. Like, there is no money in soccer. You know, women's professional sports is not going to be something that you can make of yourself. And so I just have like big middle fingers up to those 2 people.
It's like, in your face, bastards.
Yeah.
Okay, so you left college after 3.5 years because you wanted to pursue professional sports. Now, give me the story. How did you go from college to captain of the U.S. soccer team?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't happen overnight. That's
right.
For freaking sure. I actually got drafted. So back in the day when I was coming out of college, there was a former professional league called the WUSA, and that's the league that I got drafted into. Now, I was drafted number 2 out of college, and for any pro athlete to go number 2 is like, oh, I really wanted to go number 1, you know? But there was some silver lining in that being drafted too, is I got actually drafted to play for the team that Mia Hamm played on. And, you know, as a 21-year-old kid, 22-year-old kid, going to learn and play alongside one of the best players and best female athletes that's ever walked the earth was a gift. It was a true gift. And, and, you know, obviously, developing a relationship and a professional relationship with Mia on the field, it was everything. I learned everything from her in those few years that I was able to play with her. I played with her for 3 years, and it was the end of her career. And I think that I was able to offer her something, you know, because I'm a big person. Mm-hmm. You know, I was like a big target forward, and so in the game of soccer, there's many different ways you can play the game. And back in the day, it was a more direct style. So, you know, your defense would kick the ball up to your offense. And because I was so big, I was able to hold possession or keep possession or flick the ball on with my head to Mia running onto it. And she was such a tactician of the game that she really did teach me how to play the game, rather than the way that I had only played it before was just like, give me the ball and I'm going to bang it in the back of the net anyway, right? I'm going to put my body on the line. I'm going to do anything that I can to score a goal. And I was really good at it, you know, but it wasn't until I actually had the chance to play with Mia and some of those other professional players that first year was so important for my development. And I did pretty well. I did well enough to get called up to the national team for my first call up. I mean, I had a call up in college, but it was more or less I showed up and they looked at me and they were like, she's not good enough yet. But when I started playing with Mia, they saw that I had developed not just physically, because I became much more fit as a pro athlete. When I got to not have to go to do school, like have to go to class and have to do the tests and stuff and just focus on playing soccer, there was a gigantic shift in my playing because that's what I was meant to do. Yeah. So I was able to be more fit and strong and not get hurt. And so then I got, those call-ups with the national team. And because I developed that relationship with Mia on that professional team, I was able to transfer that connection to the national team. So in 2003 was a Women's World Cup. And that was the first Women's World Cup that I was able to make. And it was predominantly because Mia and I had a great connection, and when the coach told me that I made the roster, I was like beside myself. And then she told me, and by the way, you're going to be starting. And I was like, what? I was like, are you kidding me? I'm 23 years old. I'm young. I don't really know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just doing everything that Mia tells me to do. Yeah. And, having the chance to play with players like Mia and Julie Foudy and Brandi Chastain and Christine Lilly, these women who basically were my idols growing up, who built the women's national team, who were on that 99 World Cup team. You remember the game when Brandi rips her jersey off at the end after. Yeah. These women were legends and are legends still to this day. And I got a chance to learn from them, to feel out what, our women's national team culture was all about. And I guess after that, they say like the rest is a bit history, but I got to go to the Olympics in 2004. I was able to we lost in the quarterfinals, the semis of the World Cup in 2003. My mark actually scored that game-winning goal. So I felt like it was my fault that I lost this next World Cup after that 99 World Cup that I wasn't a part of. So I worked so hard that next year to make up for that mistake. And I was able to score the game-winning goal in the final to win a gold medal for us and to send some of those older players off into their retirement as champions. So it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then, their memory still lives even today within the team. The team is still fighting for equality.
Yeah, let's talk about
philosophy. That. Yeah, philosophy that
you are a woman athlete in a sport that, of course, like a lot of sports, are placed on the global scale and only spoken of as sports for men to be a part of. And soccer especially is like the world's most popular sport. Yep. And you as a woman in sports and in soccer, you've probably dealt with a lot of inequality. You've probably dealt with a lot of unfair treatment. How has your journey been? And how has it been different from the athletes that you know who are not women?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I think in my retirement, I've done a lot of thinking about this. Throughout my career, I fancied myself. I was like, I'm on the national team. Like, I am not subject to the same kind of unequal treatment that other women are, right? And so I felt like I had won something, or I had one up on the rest of the women of the world. I was offered seats at tables. I was offered into to the back rooms that big decisions are being made. And it wasn't until I retired and was standing on the stage next to Kobe and Peyton, feeling like awe, like, wow, here we are, we women, we are finally making it. We're getting the respect. We're getting what's due. We're getting ours. It wasn't until we walked off that stage that I realized that I was part of and supporting, I think, in some ways, the system that holds women back. I realized the three of us were walking into three very different retirements. Their biggest concern was where they're going to invest their hundreds of millions of dollars. And mine was, and this is true, how I was going to pay my mortgage, like what job I would get. Wow. And so it was then and there that night that I decided that I was going to fight for this not to be the case. So, the Alex Morgans and the Crystal Dunns of the world would not share this experience that I had. It would be better for the next retired player. And that I realized, and it was a humbling moment, that if this is happening to me, this is happening to every woman on the planet, because I was gaining some access, yet this is still happening to me. So this is happening to every woman. And the irony, I mean, thinking back, I have been able to create a job per se, a speaking career, an author. I'm an author of a couple books, and I've been able to create more financial income for my family in post-retirement by far than I ever made while I was a professional athlete. And I was a pro athlete for 15 years, and I've been retired for 4.
So wait, I need that point to be repeated. Repeat that point again, because that's significant. Yeah.
So in my retirement, when I realized that there was all of this inequality that I was suffering inside of this man's world, stepping out of it and trying to do right.
I want you to repeat the part about how you made more money in 4 years after you retired.
I'm getting there. I was able to make, and I have been lucky enough to create my own business that has made my family more money in the last 4 years than I did for the entirety of my professional playing career. That is something that's real. And so when people ask me, like, you're an activist, because that's what I am first, I never got into this world, primarily to make money. That's not the whole point. Like the Barnard speech, Wolfpack book, that has completely sent my business off into the stratosphere. And it was just me speaking my story. Right. And so I've become a sought after speaker from the corporate world because I'm trying to teach what I learned as an athlete and some of the pitfalls that show up and some of the insidious things that even us women, we explain away, we justify in every possible way. Obviously I feel grateful. However, I still believe that the players that are playing now deserve more. I mean, the current team, they sued U.S. Soccer, the U.S. Soccer Federation. And because of that, the lawsuit has been thrown out since. But the truth is people have to understand that our women's national team literally earns more money for the federation, for the governing body that controls them. They earn more than the men's national team.
What?
And they have been earning more since 2015. Yet our women's national team players earn far less than our men's national team players. There's far less money dedicated and earmarked for the women's team. So it's not even just about salaries, right? It's about marketing. It's about funding of the youth programs. It's about how the money gets divvied up, right? So when sponsorships come to U.S. Soccer and say, I want to sponsor you, a lot of those sponsors want to sponsor us because of the women's national team. And it's because, and this is not a slight to the men, this is just fact, it's because the women's national team win. And every 4 years, every 3 years, they become a marketing, I don't know what the word is, a machine. It's like everything they touch turns to gold. And so people want to be a part of it. So I think that we got a long way to go to get to a semblance of equality. I know that the Brazilian national team and the English national team and the Norwegian national teams, their federations pay their men and women the exact same, with a little asterisk with the Brazilian federation that they say that their team is getting paid the same as the men in relation to, what was the word? So comparable or percentage comparisons, based on, because the World Cup, FIFA governs the World Cup, right? And the prize money that the teams get is very different. So the winner of the Men's World Cup gets like $40 to $50 million, and the women get like 3.
Oh God. See, this is just interesting to talk about too, because it talks about the complex layers of privilege, right? Like in sports, is how privilege is dynamic. Privilege changes based on what the concept is that you're reflecting about. And you, as a white woman, are currently speaking about being in a sport and having a career where you were actually not of privilege in the way you could have, because the men who are not earning what you should be earning, who are earning like thousands more than what you should be earning, are not even bringing in that much. So, you know, it's always fascinating when we talk about privilege, because privilege is not a blanket thing where one person is privileged in one way and all of a sudden in everything. No, in sports, you're actually marginalized as a woman. And that has been a major part of your post-retirement life. Another thing that's been a major part of your post-retirement life is how your life has changed considerably in the last 5 years. If you tell the story of how you are now sober because of how you realized it was not going the way it should. I want to talk about that. Like, why are you sober now?
Yeah. So back in 2016, that was, 6 months since retirement, 4 months since retirement.
Yeah.
Where I was personally, as a pro athlete, and this is not to give any excuse, this is just evidence. As a pro athlete, no pro athlete ever steps on the field feeling 100%. That's just like a truth. You feel there's something always nagging you, whether it's your legs feel off, or you're carrying like a tweaked muscle, or for me at the end of my career, I had severe Achilles tendonitis. 8 years prior, I'd broken my leg. And that is the time when I started to use, Vicodin or pain medication to allow me to get back on the field and start training again and get back into shape. And so you develop this mindset. And as an athlete, everything, your body's like a machine, right? So you have doctors telling you, take this caffeine pill before you play. It'll make you more focused. It'll make you more energized. And then you're up all night. And so they're like, okay, take this Ambien so that you can go to sleep. And then you get injured. And then the doctors are like, okay, like if you're having like severe pain, and this is back in the day when they were just like handing any athlete any kind of prescription that they wanted. So this inside of me, inside of my brain as an addict, it turned on something inside of me that made me think, oh, there's a pill for that, right? There is a pill for that. Oftentimes, like the big rabbit hole that addicts go down. So I also very much had a all or nothing personality. And what that means was when I was in camp and with the national team, I was all bought in, training hard, eating perfect, doing everything that I needed. But in my mind, when we were out of camp, I would drink too much. And then as my career went on, I felt like, oh, I need this pain med. I need this. And then as time goes on, I start drinking more because as an addict, you need more to get the same benefit. Yeah. And then over time, over a decade of doing this, I realized I was drinking myself into a depressed state. At the time, my marriage was falling apart, and I made the ridiculous, stupid decision to get behind the wheel of a car after having drank all day on the golf course. I got pulled over. I spent the night in jail, and what felt like the worst thing that ever happened to me, the worst thing that ever could happen to me, I felt like my life was over. Turned it out to be the most important and best thing that could ever happen to me. And it's funny because I called my mom from jail, like one would. I mean, what was she going to do? She was in New York.
You got to call mom. When you get in trouble, who do you call? Your mom first.
Yeah, she was in New York. There's nothing she could do. I needed my mom, And she just said the most profound thing to me. And I don't know if I've actually properly thanked her for it, but she just said, listen, we make mistakes. People make mistakes. She said, but what I know about you is that you make your mistakes right. You have since you were a baby, and you're going to make this right. You're going to make this someday in the future. It's going to be made right. And I've held on to that. I have not had a single pill or a single sip of alcohol since. It was really the thing that woke me up.
Yeah.
And the irony of it is that I walked into a hotel a month and a half later, sober, kind of shaky, in early sobriety. And I walked into a room and Glennon Doyle was in that room. And
I love that.
And the reason that I'm so proud of my story and that time is that I know for a fact that if I was still drinking, Glennon and I never meet. We may have said hello, but the energy and what was necessary for our meeting to create the love, to create the life that we have now, required complete sobriety and presence. So I'm so proud of that. And I know that all of your listeners, I know that somebody has something they're dealing with, right? Whether it be alcohol or addiction. Actually, it's so interesting. One of a good friend of ours just said the other day that the true definition of addiction is trying to replicate a former feeling over and over again. And I was like, wow, that's so true, right? Like, we're a bit habitual, us human beings. And I know that people have so many different things that we're all struggling with, whether it be parenting or whether it's substance abuse or food stuff or work or what am I doing or purposelessness. Like everybody's dealing with something. And I just want people to understand and know that even when you have made the worst mistake in your whole life, there is always an opportunity inside of it. And truly, Oprah would say, like, life sends you whispers. And if you don't listen to the whispers, like, life is just going to send a brick and it's going to hit you in the face just so that you're hearing, just so that you're listening. And, that night was the brick that I needed. I needed it to wake me up and to humble me because, there's also that thing of fame and being an athlete and winning and going into my retirement. I was terrified of retiring. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. And so all of that stuff combined, it was just like a really good before and after, and our children, they'll never, not one day, God willing that I stay sober, they'll never see me intoxicated, which is super cool.
That's such a gift. That is such a gift and such a gem because people don't really understand the toll that it takes. To be a professional athlete all your life is to be a machine all your life.
Yeah.
Rants fam, if you haven't joined us in Love Nation and become a Love Cousin yet, well, I need you to do that. Love Nation is my free community that is a safe space in the dumpster fire world. It's the place for the most thoughtful, funny, most chill-deficient people on the interwebs. We're a community that comes together to make each other better with curated conversations, opportunities to connect, and challenges to help us transform and do better in every area of our lives. You gotta stop sitting on this and come to lovenation.com. That's LUVVNATION. Download the app in the App Store or on Android and come through. So back to the podcast. What do you think about that version of you? Do you still carry with you day by day?
Yeah. So there's actually this really great biography, a documentary that Michael Phelps put out. I think it's on HBO. I think it's called Weight in Gold or something in gold. And it talks a lot about the mental illness and the mental stress of being this professional athlete, because here's the thing. Everything has a cost. Okay. And this is not to pity party myself or athletes because we choose it. This is a life choice. That being said, it's still hard because you have to have this complete focus on this one thing. And if you waver, your world can suffer, like your sport, your job. And for me as a female athlete, I don't have these 10, 100, $500 million contracts to rely on. Yeah. If I get hurt, I might not be getting paid for 6 months, for 1 year, in the same ways that I was getting paid before. And that's like a direct stressor to the way you can live your life, to peace, right? And I think back about who I was during that time as an athlete, and I'm proud of the stuff that I did. You know, nobody really knew what I was truly suffering with in the end. It wasn't all my career. In the end, I think I was more or less terrified of what was going to happen next in my retirement. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was going to be, how I was going to support my life, how I was going to support myself. And so, yeah, I'm proud of what I was able to create. I'm proud of leading our national team to many championships. And I'm proud of the relationships that I was able to create. You know, the end of my career, I wasn't on the field as much as I was at the beginning, in the middle of my career. In fact, I got benched in the Women's World Cup, my last World Cup. Towards the end of the tournament, I wasn't my best. I wasn't playing my best. But I was able to develop a sense of leadership that I had yet to learn. You know, everything that I had yet to learn about leadership, I say, was sitting right there on the bench. And I think the way that I responded to that, you know, my teammates, a few of my teammates have had serious things that have happened in their life. And I think that the way I responded to that made them understand that I was there for them. It wasn't about me. I was there, and everything that I said, like everything that I dreamed our team could be, I actually believed. And I am proud of the way that I responded to that. And mostly I'm proud that my teammates still call me when they need help.
Because you are a leader's leader. So me and Abby were also on the Together Live tour together. I got to see Abby really be our captain. Abby's the one who's like, everybody, come on, we got this. She's still a coach, even when she's trying not to be a coach. Like, you just can't help it. Me and Glennon might be doing our thing on the side, and Abby's the one literally being like, come on, guys, let's huddle. And I'm like, yes, let us. Meanwhile, we're dragging our feet and being random and just squealing. Abby keeps us focused. Because I always saw how I was like, okay, so I can imagine this is how she's on the soccer field, but more intense.
Yes.
Wrangling me and Glennon is blessed. It's an act in itself. It's an act of service in itself.
I loved that Together tour because it really brought back that locker room feeling. You know, we'd be backstage waiting to go on stage, and the crew would come and give us a 5-minute warning, and I'm like, all right, everybody's got to go pee. Like, let's go.
Right, everybody go pee. That was everybody go pee.
Yeah, it was just like the few minutes, like it reminded me so much about the few minutes right before we were about to go make magic happen. And it's exactly what was happening on that Together Live stage. And, you know, I just love those moments. Those are the moments that you remember. Like, I don't remember many on-stage moments. I actually remember more of the backstage.
Yeah, I remember backstage before the show, everybody eating snacks and stuff in our faces with random snacks. And I just remember us about to go on stage. Those are the moments that actually pop in my head more too. And our random, I still have all the little selfies we took. So those are.
Well, and who knew that we would be finding ourselves years later talking to each other? You've like meteoric rise with Share the Mic Now campaign and this podcast and your books. We can't wait for your new book to come out in March. I mean, literally, like, we wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for the courageousness of each and every one of us to say yes to certain things, to bring us on stage, to share intimate things and vulnerable things that people hopefully can learn from and see themselves inside.
And you represent a lot of different marginalized groups, as a woman, as someone who's a lesbian, as someone who, again, a woman athlete is a marginalized person if I ever saw one. What is it that people say to you when they send you fan mail or notes that makes you most proud?
Well, first of all, I hate when people send me fan mail to my house. Like, that's creepy.
That's creepy.
Can people just stop doing that? I think that the stuff now that I'm most proud of is that people believe that I'm sticking up for, quote unquote, the voiceless, the young girls who haven't had the opportunity yet to take the field for Team USA, to get into college and play women's sports. One of the things I'm most proud of for myself these days is just truly listening and being an ally for for not just my marginalized fight, right? Not just like gay rights or fight for women and equality. It's like, until we're all free, then nobody's free. And I think the Black Lives Matter movement and social justice reform is so overdue. And I actually have had to own some of my own, because I think about soccer, right? I think about how white soccer is.
Yeah.
And because I'm fighting for women's equality, why am I not fighting for more Black little girls to get involved? So I've actually been headlong, I'm long right now on trying to make sure that little Black girls have as much opportunity as little white girls, because that's just going to make our world better. And if I'm only fighting for things that matter to me, then I'm actually not an activist at all.
That's significant, and that's real. Until we're all free, none of us are free. Yeah. And you definitely stepped up in making sure you're using your voice. It's amazing, because even as we did share the mic now, you shared your mic with Yaba Blay, who I love her. Yaba is everything. Yaba Blay is everything. I love her. Okay. And we paired, and I was like, oh, we picked the right pair. We picked the right person for Abby's platform, because Yaba speaks the truth in a real way without apology, and it's hard cutting, and she's not afraid to say the thing. And how you held space for her was so dope. Like, you made sure you protected her in this whole piece. Y'all have formed a friendship because of it. And I think that's amazing, because you're modeling what it looks like to be an ally, like by actually using and putting something on the line in a big way. So that's huge. And we need more of that, which is why I'm like, yo, the people who I invite on this show, first of all, most of the people who come on rants are Black. Actually, there's only been 2 white people to ever be on rants besides you. And that's been Glennon. Actually, no, 3. That's been Glennon, Sophia Bush, and Rory Vaden. Nice. And I said to myself, and I've been said to my team, the only people who I want on this platform who are not going to be Black are people who I like deeply respect, who use their voice and their platforms for people who are bigger than, who are not them. Like, people who are actively using their voices and their power to push forward those who don't have as much power as them. And that's why I invited you. So I'm like, Abby does that. So that's major. And I, such respect for it.
I'm going to take that. I feel that deeply. And look, as a white person in this world that we're living in right now in 2020, I know I have done things in my life that have been from privilege. I have said things and I have thought things because of the world that I was raised in. And I have been trying to systematically break free from this internalized racism that I was brought up believing. And Dr. Yaba Blay has completely schooled me on white supremacy. And we've developed and formed a friendship that I think will last forever. I'm not going to be the one spouting at a professional speaking engagement about Black Lives Matter, because I'm still in the understanding and educating of my own specific, it is not my story to tell. Right. I want to make sure all white people understand that we have racism inside of us. And it's the scariest thing for white people to say out loud, I am a racist, right? But I think what Dr. Yaba Blay allowed me to shift my lens on is this idea of white supremacy and how that is really what we're talking about, right? Yeah. It's this belief system that we are, and how white centering is in everything. I mean, the other day, Glennon was just diversity is white centering. And I'm even in the business world, she's it's white male centering. What are we diverse from? It's called representation. We need to actually get rid of this word of diversity and inclusion inside the corporate world, because at the end of the day, that just makes white people the center and we have to, and the default. And it's just and by the way, it's so important that I have friends like you, like Yaba, that I can sometimes ask questions to and you'd be like, oh, that's racist. No, that's not right. Or, okay, right. Because I do want to be a force for white people to see, okay, I'm going through this learning process. And some of this stuff is not my fault, but I'm a fucking adult. Can I say that word on this podcast?
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah, I'm a fucking adult, and I get to decide the way that I see the world. And if you want to keep seeing the world through the lens of your white supremacist upbringing, continue on, but you will be left behind. And you will then find yourself at white supremacist rallies defending your position, right? I don't want that. I see how slippery that slope is for some people, but I want to be a person that is truly an ally, right? And for us white people, we've got to do the work personally, internally, individually first before we say anything. Do not bother your Black friends, even though you and Yaba have been so wonderful with me.
You don't bother us because you don't be like, okay, I have a question. Like we actually have real conversation and we'll have real dialogue and understanding. You don't be like random text message. Hey, random question about this thing. Like, you don't do that. But that's what friendship also is, right? Like that is why for a lot of people, they don't have real friendship with people who don't look like them. Right. Because you haven't built the community, you haven't done the work, you aren't in the spaces, which in itself also is a privilege, being spaces where people look different. Right. But being able to seek it out, being able to have it, and then using it, right, properly. Not just taking advantage of it, but actually using the space and creating community. I count myself to be privileged in that I do consider a few white people to be my friends, like you, like Glennon. And that's because you guys have shown that you're trustworthy. That's because you guys have shown that you have done the work, continue to do the work internally, and you try to step back when you need to. And I think that's important, is in this whole, how do we get to freedom, liberation? I think it's going to be important for people to prove that they are trustworthy. Yeah.
And white people are they have such white supremacy inside of them that they're like, I don't have to prove anything. And then like white fragility comes into play. I mean, Yaba said one time, she's like, look, it was such a profound thing. She's like, if you're a white person and you have Black friends and you call, I have a Black friend, or I have a Black friend. She's like, you have acquaintances. Like, you need to like prove yourself over time. And you need to prove that you can handle some of our Blackness, right? And you need to prove that you're not trying to change us into the white kind of friend that you have to your left and to your right. Like we need to be able to show up with our full humanity intact. And that's going to be confronting for a lot of you white folks, right? And I think that has been one of the most beautiful things for me, you know, because it's like with the stuff that we're taught when we're a young child, like how you're supposed to like walk into a room, and especially with being a girl, and you need to be quiet. And it's like, no, like, and I've had to like tell Yaba, like, I can handle your rage. I can hold it, and it's not going to scare me away. And I think after that, she was like, this one's different.
I was on that phone call when you were like, be angry. Because Yaba was like, listen, I'm about to let you have it. And you was like, be angry. And I was like, well, shit, let's go.
Yeah.
That's huge, because we can't even show anger, because when we show anger, even when we're not showing anger, we're called aggressive. So imagine us showing anger. People will think we want to burn their house down. Like people will think we're personally going to show up to their house and kill them. So the fact that that's a real thing for her to even say that, like, you can handle my rage is Abby, I'm just letting you know, you just got the insider track. That is some shit that, if you have never seen your Black friend angry, you don't have a Black friend. Totally. I'll let you know right now.
Totally.
Lennon has seen me angry. I called her today, cussing about something else, but
I love it.
If you have not seen your friend angry or feeling an emotion that's not just pleasantry and harmony, that's not really your friend. You haven't seen them in a real tough moment. So that's a test that you might have passed.
Well, and I think for all white people that are listening to this, it's like, when you really think about it, it's like Black women actually deserve to be more angry than any other person on the planet.
Facts.
And if we were handed the same hand, if we were dealt the same hand, we would also be really fucking pissed and really angry and really untrustworthy of any white person that came into our existence. Because if you really look at it, there are a few white people that we can really trust, you know, and the governments that have been in place, the systems and the institutions that have just been continuing white supremacy generation after generation. I mean, I'd be pissed. I'd be angry all the time. But and like, what was her name? The woman, Kim, she said,
I know who you're talking about.
Kim Jones. And yes. She said, you should just be thankful that we don't want revenge, you know?
Facts.
And I'm like, yes, I am thankful for that. Like, let's just do like the bare minimum here. And like, let's just fight for equality. You know, I don't know. It's obviously a complicated and a scary topic for a lot of white people to enter into. But once you do, it's really eye-opening. It's really upsetting that it's taken me this long to get here.
Well, I count you as part of my wolf pack.
Yeah, baby.
You even have the t-shirt to prove it.
Yeah, baby.
I count you as part of my wolf pack, and you wrote this dope book called Wolf Pack, and it's based on this viral commencement talk that you gave at Barnard. Tell us about, there's a line in there in your trailer that captures it perfectly about what a wolf pack is. Talk about it.
Yeah, so Wolfpack is a book that I wrote back in 2019. It was based off of the commencement speech at Barnard, and basically, you know, the president of Barnard, she emailed me and asked if I wanted to do the commencement speech, and I was like, holy shit, like, yes. But when I told Glennon, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. Like, what am I going to say? You know? And so after a few months of working this out, and you heard that correctly, it took months to prepare this commencement speech. I really wanted to hammer home where we were at the time, right? Racism and sexism were just like so poignant in the world. Felt like the world was on fire. Felt like women were just getting the most giant shaft in the world. And I have some serious experience with that. But I had to do some real digging through some of the stories of my life that also applied to the time that we were living to right now. And the reason why I called it Wolfpack is because I'm obsessed with wolves, and I'm obsessed with the idea. There was a story that I heard that in 1995, scientists decided to reintroduce wolves into Yellowstone National Park. The rivers had stopped running, and they couldn't figure out exactly what was going on. They finally got enough research done that they found that the deer were overpopulating and eating up all the vegetation. So it was actually eroding the riverbeds, and it was making the rivers run less. And because of that, like, the fish didn't come and the birds didn't come. And so there was just this ecological failing that was happening. And so they decided, we're going to reintroduce the wolves into Yellowstone National Park. And what ended up happening was that these wolves revived this ecosystem. They hunted the deer away from these riverbanks. So the riverbanks were able to grow back stronger, and the river was able to run better. And so because of that, the birds and the fish and the otter and the beavers came back. And so when I heard this story, it was this YouTube by this like British guy. It was like a TED Talk. I was like, oh my God, like, we women, we are the wolves, right? Like, this is something that I deeply believe in every fiber of my existence, that women leadership is exactly the remedy to the fires of our lives right now. I mean, just look specifically to the pandemic and all the female-led countries and how they've fared. Yep. Women leadership has never really been in existence. The institutions that have been built, the governments that have been built by men for men. And I believe that so much of the struggle and so much of the issues that we see on a day-to-day basis is just toxic masculinity to its core. So this book comes through with 8 rules that through my story, through my experience, try to show women the injustice that's happening, and not necessarily a solution, but that we do truly need each other. Like women packs are essentially the way we can start changing things. You know, I had the unique experience of playing on a national team for so many years that I realize, you know, people don't ask me all the time, like, what is it like playing on the women's national team? And it truly is a gift because, and when you're in it, you don't realize it, but when you get it taken away from you, being in that environment of like 23 type A badass women who all believe in the central idea of winning, winning at all costs, like full stop, like that was the goal. It didn't mean that we like believed everything that each other believed in. We had Republicans on the team. Like it didn't mean that we believed that we agreed on every small decision. But when you have a collective group who believe in a central idea, a goal, a purpose, then you can build around the relentless pursuit of excellence that we as a women's national team culturally bought into day in and day out. And so, yeah, the wolf pack, like women have to band together. We have to find our people to do life with, right? And it doesn't mean that it's a number that you have to hit. It just means that you have to get the right people around you so that you can do life in the best and, like Glennon would say, the most true and beautiful way that you possibly can. So that means that like sometimes you have friends or people in your life that hold you accountable, and that's their role.
Yep.
Sometimes it means you have friends in your life that are the motivators and the inspirers, like that's their role. Sometimes you need your parents to just hold you tight, right? Like, or a partner to hold you tight. Like everybody has a specific role. And if you use the ideas inside of Wolfpack to free yourself from one constraint that women live within, that one falsity that we are taught as women of what it means to be a woman. If you can free yourself from one of those things, your life will be better. But oftentimes, if you actually wake up to the idea that you've been operating with different rules than men, and that you want to actually create your own life and create your own rules, usually if you go and figure out one thing, you're gonna look to figure out all the things, because you can't unknow, right, what you know. And when you figure out like you've been dealt a bad hand, and that it's been the power's job, it's like the whole of the power in existence is to keep those that they're in power over fearful of each other and afraid of themselves, especially women. I mean, when you figure that out, you're like, oh, a whole new world, literally, like The Little Mermaid, like a whole new world.
That's one of my favorite Disney movies. So
Same.
You now have Wolfpack for young adults, for teens, and what made you create that one?
Yeah, so with the success of the first book, Wolfpack, of it striking such a chord in the corporate world and people all over the world, I decided, okay, like, how can I create something that will allow children, to like never have to unlearn some of this stuff? Because like we women, we've been taught, like we've got toxic masculinity inside of us too. Because we've been living under these social norms and these social constructs for so long that there's some of this stuff that we actually have to unlearn.
We've internalized a lot of it.
Yeah, like somebody has to like shake you and tell you, no, you actually get to demand more.
Yes.
And so for me, we're raising these children, and I'm like, a book like this has to be written for young readers because they have to feel empowered. And I hate that word, but they have to feel like they are the owners of their own lives. And the only way I can feel good about, lying my head down at night is if I'm taking care of as many marginalized people as I possibly can. And children are one of the most marginalized. I mean, and especially nowadays with horrible parents who think their kids are going to be the next Abby Wambach or Alex Morgan. Like, it's like, come on, like we're trying to, the reason why we have our kids in sports is so that they can be good, figure out how to be good people. All of that. So yeah, that's why I wrote it. And it's cool because I kind of draw on some of my childhood experiences as a kid, which makes it more adaptable and understandable and interesting, I think, of a read for young readers.
That is amazing. And it is out as of October
6th.
October 6th. So y'all can buy it wherever you get your books. So question for you.
Quick, and it's a quick read. So for all the parents out there, it's a quick read that your kids will be able to get done in a night or two. You can even read it together, talk about it. I think that, I'm not ever going to write a long book again. I did that after I retired with my memoir. I'm never going to do that again. So, it's a quick read. I think that parents will really appreciate it and enjoy it, especially if you've got a little girl who you want to develop and grow into a strong beast of a woman.
Amazing. So before you go, I always want to ask people, what are you doing to take care of yourself during these times? What's your self-care themes?
So I developed a terrible habit of food obsession as a pro athlete. When I'm expending like 3,000 calories, 4,000 calories a day, it was like one of the best parts about being a pro athlete is I got to eat lots and lots of food. So in my retirement, I have had to do quite a bit of work on that. So I intermittent fast for breakfast, and I do the 12 to 6 or 8 p.m. regimen. And then as of recently, we actually, and I know this is a privilege thing, but it's something that that I would recommend to anybody, is we've invested in a trainer, somebody that actually, she backs her car up into our driveway, has all of the physical equipment that we're going to need. And we do that like 3 times a week. So I do that. And I'm a runner, evidently. I've become a runner in my retirement. So I run, when I was training for a marathon, that all got canceled because of COVID, which was so sad. I've gone from 40 to 60 miles a week to 20 to 30 miles a week. So it's the time that I actually get for myself. A lot of people don't want to schedule in physical fitness or working out into their day, because they want to have time to themselves. And there's just a mentality that you have to have that, like, oh, this is actually the time that you get to yourself. So I listen to a lot of books on tape. I'm a huge podcast listener. I love podcasts so much. I just throw it on and I just go for runs, and and then I get to eat whatever I want during those 6 to 8 hours of the not fast.
Bet. No, like that's amazing. You are just everything, and I'm excited that you exist in the world. I'm excited that we have you along for all these fights. I'm excited to have other kids look up to you and understand that they also have a place and a voice. So you're amazing. Thank you for joining me on Rants.
And Luvvie, I think you're so wonderful, and you have just scratched the surface of the kind of life I think that you deserve. I think that you are a beautiful human being, and obviously you're funny, but I think you're real, and wherever you go, Glennon and I will follow. We love you, sister.
Love you. This is so cool. Abby is amazing. She's so pure-hearted, such a forever student, and such a leader. One of my favorite things that she said in this is about how it's important to make your mistakes right. Be sure to follow Abby on social media. She's Abby Wambach on Instagram and Twitter. So that's at ABBYWAMBACH. Be sure to check out Wolfpack and the new Young Readers edition. Both of them are out on bookshelves now. Much love to Chicago Recording Company, who I've been partnering with from the start of this podcast, and they've been such a huge help putting my recordings from home together and making it sound on point, bringing y'all the radio voice. Thank you for listening to Rants and Randomness. One quick thing that you could do to help new listeners find our show is make sure you subscribe to Rants and Randomness in your podcast platform of choice. Second, make sure you rate this show and leave a comment with a review, whether you're listening in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Stitcher. And finally, please share those insights and mic drop moments on social media and be sure to tag us. We are at Rants and Randomness on Instagram. And Twitter, we are at Rants Randomness, no and. As always, you can follow me on social media. I'm at Luvvie everywhere.